This is Hans Scheil from the Finishing Well podcast. On Finishing Well, we help you make godly choices about Medicare, long-term care, and your money. Your chosen Truth Network podcast is starting in just seconds. Enjoy it, share it, but most of all, thank you for listening and choosing the Truth Podcast Network.
This is the Truth Network.
Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
How cool. You've heard this in the introduction to the After Hours for years of, right, deep from an entrenched barricade. Well, if you wonder where the word entrenchment came from originally, whose idea was that? It was mine. And I was taking it from that whole idea of the entrenched barricade, so that people that would actually get a chance to peek inside the entrenched barricade at their church. And so the idea of this show is to give people a little bit of an idea of what could go on at their church and hopefully what their appetites to ask us to come and do this kind of thing at their church. That's what we actually love to do. And there's been much fruit as a result of seeing guys get their hearts back and actually, enter into bands of brothers and those kind of things. And so we're excited to be able to do that today. And I know we're missing Sam because, there is an entrenchment involved, but as one of the Marines at the last entrenchment, we pointed out, he said, those guys are digging a trench, sure enough. But is that for a latrine, or is that for what exactly is that for? So anyway, moving along. Andy, it's your turn, man.
It's my turn. So this is from the show, the HBO docuseries or whatever, Band of Brothers. It's on Easy Company during World War II. They paratroop in, and they take it all the way from Normandy to the Eagle's Nest, where Hitler was in Austria, his private bunker or whatever.
He was entrenched.
Yeah. He was very entrenched, yeah. But they stopped along the way. You probably heard of the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes Forest. And this clip comes from there. It's when they kind of got hung up there, and it was in the winter, very cold. And you've got this Easy Company, and they've got guys coming in and going out because you have replacements. But this is one of the guys that have been hurt, and he's coming back to the group. He'd been gone for a few days just kind of getting at the medical tent or whatever. And he's coming back, and one of the guys asks who he is. Well, he's a replacement, and they just are. It's the banner between them. But then they get into each one of the guys in the Easy Company. Couple of different guys start talking about the wounds of the others, which we talk a lot about wounds, but really it's guys that have been entrenched, literally, in the Ardennes Forest, that they know each other's story. They've been together. They fought together. They've ate together. They've done all this stuff together. They know each other's story, and we're hoping, when we come in, there's a lot that we bring as far as the story about the man's heart, getting his heart back. But we feel like to move that on to the next level, you have to have a band of brothers to walk it out together. So here's the clip.
What are you doing here? I want to head back to the line, sir. Joe, you don't have to do that. Get yourself back to the aid station. Heal up.
I'd really like to head back with the fellas, sir.
All right, then go.
Thank you, sir. Joe Toy had been at the aid station for 3 days, and everybody was glad to have him back, especially Bill Garnier.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Bill.
Good to see you, pal.
You too.
What the hell you doing back here?
I had to make sure you were on top of things.
On top of things. Tied me own boots once last week. All by myself. Hey, fellas, look who I found.
Hey, Joe Toy.
Hey, Rick,
back
how
from
are you?
Mars.
How are you, Joe?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Escaped from the aid station.
Where'd you get hit?
What's that?
12. Replacement.
Really? Thought it was some guy I've known for 2 years and I forgot his face.
Joe got hit in the arm. New Year's Eve gift from the Luftwaffe.
Jesus.
A lot of you guys been injured?
It's called wounded, Peanut. Injured's when you fall out of a tree or something.
Don't worry. There's enough crap flying around here, you're bound to get dinged sometime. Almost every single one of these guys has been hit at least once. Except for Allie, he's a two-timer. He landed on broken glass in Normandy and got peppered by a potato masher in Holland.
You'll find out, son.
The Bull, he got a piece of exploding tank in Holland. Now, George Luz here has never been hit. You're one lucky...
Takes one to know one, Skip.
Consider us blessed. Now, Lee got a skinny little guy. He got pinged to the neck in Holland. And right next to him, that other skinny little guy, that's Popeye. He got shot in his scrawny little butt in Normandy.
And, Buck got shot in his rather large butt in Holland.
Yeah, kind of an easy company tradition getting shot in this. Hey, even First Sergeant Lipton over there. He got a couple pieces of a tank shell burst in Carentan. One chunk in the face, another chunk almost took out his nuts.
What are those nuts, Sarge?
Doing fine, Bill. Nice of you to ask.
Doing fine, Bill. Well, again, I think that you get the picture there, and I think that's the way it is. I know every one of these guys, and some more than others, but I know every one of their stories, and you just get that from doing life together, from being entrenched with one another, and I think it's the way God is intended. Sometimes we maybe talk about that a little bit too much. Obviously, God, Jesus, the Father, they're the ones that brings the healing. But it talks about how and I've talked about it ad nauseum, I say it every time, but how if we confess our faults one to another, we'll be healed. And we pray for each other, we'll be healed. And I think there's a lot of power in that, but God is all in it. God loves it when we get together and we have camaraderie, we love one another. That's what heaven looks like to me. And I think that we get a little bit of that down here when and you don't see it. You just don't see guys open up to one another. And that's what my hope has always been with the entrenchments. That's what I felt like God had put on my heart years ago, because we can do like 2 boot camps a year with the time we have and all. And to go into the churches and be able to speak it, it's sometimes guys got their groups together and they're doing well or whatever, but it's not like we're coming in and paratrooping in and just like, oh, we know everything. And we're just sharing our story, and hopefully it's an encouragement to other guys to get their heart back, to let God heal them up, and then walk in life with their band of brothers that God's given them there at that church.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call, to some extent that, for me, I know that when I went to my first event of the Masculine Journey, I had a paradigm, as Rodney pointed out in the first show, that, this is what Christianity looked like. And when it came to a men's event, the guys, huddled up and honestly, there was no, I guess, vulnerability. Nobody telling what they were really struggling with. Everybody, I'm fine, you're fine. There's a lot of fineness going around.
Yeah. Lack of authenticity, too.
Yeah. Right. And so, because people aren't needy out loud, right, and they're not sharing where they're at, then you really rob your brothers of the honor of entering into your battle, of locking arms with you. And, where 2 or more are gathered, you obviously realize you have more firepower in that whole situation. And so, for me, one of the great honors of this ministry is when we do an event like this, we hand out these prayer cards. And those prayer cards, we ask guys to write down what they really wanted, what they're really hoping for, what their real struggles are, those kind of things. Yeah. And quite often, Danny, they get super vulnerable.
Yeah, they do.
And can you describe what it's like to sit amongst a band of brothers praying over those prayer cards?
Oh man, it's something, because you do see some terrible handwriting at times, but that's just us. That's just us.
That's not what I was expecting you to say.
But no, you do see somebody pouring their heart out, and they may write something on that card that they won't say out loud.
Yeah.
But in a sense, that's a way in to, letting us have the privilege of praying over these things and entering into a relationship maybe with these guys. And, and the cool thing about it for me is to sit around and one of us have thrown a card in. And,
right.
And so Lord knows the fruit that has come out of that in my own life and in, everybody that sits around these microphones every week that, and we enter into life. And like Andy said really well, we do life together. I talk or text to one of you guys about 3 or 4 times a week. Even, we meet once a week anyway. And that's just so cool. That's what the life is for me, for, entrenchment or, this whole genre of ministry is that I finally found a band of brothers who's doing life together around a common cause. Mm-hmm. And right. that is the hope of an entrenchment, I think, is that, if you've got a band of brothers, rally around something that's going to bring you life, not going to give you something else to do.
Yeah.
And, I maybe have heard this. I think it's a great saying. It's kind of pithy, but, it'll stick out to you. You're as sick as your secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
I was really sick.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? I mean, like right this minute, yes. There's things about my life that I don't share that I should have.
Yeah.
Right? And what I have discovered in walking with a bunch of very authentic men is quite often where we're the sickest or where our hearts are the brokenest is in our own families. Right?
Yep.
And going after our kids and all that kind of stuff. But how neat is it? Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, how neat is it when you have the honor of praying for somebody you dearly love, man, and you know how much they love God and whatever, but you can see their heart ripped out, like certain members of this group I could talk about right now that are going through desperate things in their families, but we're all entered in, and because, these guys they're not hiding the fact, because a lot of the sin we're talking about is not stuff that you'll hear in a Sunday school. Yeah. They're just not coming out that way, because people are thinking that they're going to be judged. You must be some kind of bad dad or whatever, if you got that going on.
Yeah, I can't believe he said that.
And I get that. And part of me there was a part of me as I was going through my struggles that wanted nothing more than I didn't want anybody to find out, but yet my heart screamed to be authentic and true and vulnerable. And it's like a catch-22 because you don't know that you can trust somebody until you get in a group like this. But that's one of the things the guys see that come to boot camp and entrenchments is that we're pretty authentic and share the good, bad, and ugly of our lives. And that breaks them free. I don't know how many I hear that say, oh, when I heard it from the stage, that freed me up to be able to share it with somebody else. Well, that could be that somebody in a church that they never would have shared it before because they trust that person, but they never thought that they could trust that person enough to be able to share that, whatever it was.
Right, which gets back to the author of the whole deal who said, is it setting the captives free?
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is it binding up the brokenhearted?
Right.
That's what the gospel does.
Yes.
It does it for unbelievers. I understand they got to come to Christ, but the real freedom in Christ in the abundant life is getting into all those places that he really wants to get at to heal your heart so that you can, be in a position to share how God's come for you in these things, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And what's been really cool in my own life here is that, I've been part of men's ministries for years, have been a director of one. But to come in here and to share, I've shared some pretty nasty stuff at times. And not once did anybody look at me with disdain, except Sam's only got one look, and it always looks like disdain.
Right.
But it's not, if you know his heart. But nobody said, oh, man, I can't believe you've done that. Most of the time it's, when I was where you're at.
Yeah, right.
But that's the beauty of what we're talking about is that's what brings life is that, because Jesus never come at anybody caught in something harshly.
Mm-mm.
He lovingly bound up their broken heart.
Yeah.
He set the captive free somehow or another. And, of course, he was Jesus. But that's what I see in the band of brothers.
And you saw it in this Bagger clip.
I did.
So lay it on us.
Well, the clip is from The Legend of Bagger Vance, and it's a locker room scene where Juna and Bagger are having a discussion, and Juna is locked into, and I'm going to read the definition of entrenchment. I looked it up. I kind of took this thing at a different angle, which we've all know from previous shows. My different angles gets me in a lot of trouble around here sometimes. Thus, I got the last clip. So, flattery will get you nowhere with Robbie, obviously. So, anyway, Sam, come back, please. The entrenchment is the process or fact of an attitude, habit, or belief becoming so firmly established that change is very difficult or unlikely. And what we find in men's lives, and Juna is locked into, this is the way life is. This is how it goes, and it's sad. And Bagger's coming after his heart because he sees something in Juna, but the way he does it is so beautiful, and it's classic. So we can talk about it after the clip.
The Lord.
Oh. I pulled a Sam. Excuse me. I started the clip in the middle.
Now you're going to mess my clip up.
I don't care if I'm 12 strokes back. I just don't.
You don't even want to win?
It's just a game, Bagger.
Ah, yes, sir. You done said it yourself now. That's a game. So maybe there's something else that's riling you. Maybe you thought you was just going to sashay out onto that green and the old hero of Savannah just reappeared all by itself. Don't work that way is all. The Junior you was, you ain't never going to be again. Ever. That's all I'm saying.
You don't know anything about me.
Well, I know one thing for sure. You gonna look pretty foolish tromping out there with two different shoes on your feet.
Oh, Jesus. You got an answer for everything, don't you, Bagger? Let me tell you something. There's no difference between winning and losing, and anything in between. What's lost is lost. A man lives, a man dies. And in the end, it all turns out the same. You're alone. And that's all you're ever gonna be.
That a fact. Alone. So a soul is born with everything that the Lord can give it, and things don't go its way, so it just gives up, and the good Lord just takes everything back.
That's right.
And then the soul dies alone. But that's pretty much what you said?
That's right.
That's a sad story, Mr. Jenner.
Yes, it is.
And that's about the dumbest thing I heard any fool say ever. You got yourself a hard eye there, Mr. Jenner. Soul is born with everything, don't look dies, and the good Lord. You a funny man, Mr. Jenner.
The humor in that is incredible. But, so often we're like Juna. We're locked into, this is just the way life is, and I'm not going to ever be able to change. And then you come along and you dive into this thing called Wild at Heart and the Masculine Journey, and all of a sudden there's some hope. There's a reality of it, and you see men who have walked on the journey a little before you, and the freedom that they found in all the things that we've talked about. The exposing the agreements and stuff like that, but the covenant of silence is where God comes in and goes, "Hey, you're not alone, and I'm aware of where you're at. I've been aware for a long time," and brings life back into you, and you find freedom in that, and
identity, right?
And identity.
I mean, I love. I didn't see over there, Rodney. You're locked and loaded over here, but
you're good. Go.
Just as I get a chance to hear these guys do these talks, right? That after you've done enough boot camps and you got new guys coming up and they're getting the message to the point they're teaching it. And then you can hear what a difference it made in their life when God spoke into them their own identity. And all of a sudden they began to walk in the identity that God gave them, through a covenant of silence, through a boot camp experience. And you see fruit like you've never seen. Like, that is the gospel, right? That you see people coming alive, people becoming wholehearted, people all in, right? They don't just show up for a boot camp maybe. No, they get there, 6, like Corn, right? He's going to show up there a day early. And when he's there, you better believe he's going to be right? All in every minute that, that's the deal.
Yeah, Corn's about as wholehearted as you can get. But I love your clip, Danny, because then, like I said, pre-show, when we go over other people's clips, we start to see something in them that we didn't see before and others have in them. And I love it because I'm thinking about strength and, well, whose strength is Jonah trying to live in? And it's his own, because his past is, I went off to war with all my buddies and I'm the only one that came back. So it's kind of like survivor's remorse. So what's he do? He doubles down on his own strength. And now he's got this opportunity in this golf tournament to go back to his previous life. And everything's weighing me down because he can't do it by himself. And in the scene then later on, when they're out there in that last round, and he's about to pick up that ball, and this is the precursor to that scene that says, Bagger's like, I'm right here with you. Right here with you. When he does that, it just starts to snap. It's like, you can either stop or you can start. And that's start. Where am I going? It's like, you're going someplace where you can't go on your own. Then after that whole scene, he hits this great shot, and he's like, all of a sudden he's got a bounce in his step, and he's lively. He's like, boy, Bagger, you're a great caddy. And it's just like everything's changed. It's like that moment of salvation for him, right? And I love it when Paul in 2 Corinthians 12 is like, I boast in my weakness. That's the same thing as saying, I boast in the Lord's strength. It's not me anymore. And that switch, that change, that repentance, that I'm going to turn from my own strength and go to his, is just huge. And I love that in that scene in that whole movie.
Right. And I'm surprised that Andy hadn't jumped all over it, because it's clearly an orphan spirit, that he's talking about there, right?
Yeah, he said he's been right there with him all along. But Juna sure didn't feel that way. And it truly is the orphan spirit. He had taken on this independence, self-determination, like you like to say. And he was living like an orphan. And what Danny pointed out in that clip that he had, or that was in it, is I didn't realize that there was a spiritual aspect. I thought he was just kind of like some angel to no tie, but he was actually talking about, you feel like the good Lord giveth and he taketh away, and that's all there is to it, and you're left alone. And then he goes on later to tell him, I've been right here with you all along. It's just really a cool, like we like to say, it's not about golf, that movie. It's about the masculine journey, really.
No, but I don't know a single man, when you really see them as they begin to walk in their true identity, that won't admit that at some point in their life, there was a realization that I'm not alone, right? Because I'm going to do it on my own. That there is a point in every man's life where they said, oh, if it's going to happen, it's going to be up to me, because, everybody's betrayed me. My dad didn't turn out to be what, this person, that person. And so, Satan's attack on men in general is to create this self-determination. Like you said, if this is going to happen, I'm going to be the one that does it, rather than it being in fellowship with the Father.
And if you're a Christian, essentially it's a godless way to live.
Oh yeah,
you're independent. You're really your own God at that point.
Well, I was that guy. I mean, that 2 failed marriages, and there's got to be, it's either hopeless or it's nothing. And then we had a big wedding in the family this weekend, and I think we're Greek, because just this big, large, loving family. I'm no longer alone, but the biggest part of it was Jesus entered into that. And, one of the greatest things that has happened so far in this journey with me is studying and diving into the humanity of Christ and who he was. He does understand.
Yeah.
He does engage, just like Bagger. He's in the locker room. He's telling me I got 2 different shoes on. Because I'm very
I'm pretty sure he told me once or twice, that's the dumbest thing I ever
heard. Yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, Kenny, no. Chuck, I know you got something over there. I can see you're loaded up. You're ready to go. So
Oh, just what I get from this is just really taking the time to listen to God's voice. And the way we do that is just diving into his word. And you keep diving into his word. You get around a band of brothers that they're pouring out his word. They're also diving into his word. And you just see that excitement. Like you said, it comes to life, and through that, it's a process, and it kind of builds on each other. When you begin to recognize God's voice, you also begin to recognize the enemy's voice in Satan, and you can start distinguishing between those two and start pushing Satan's voice aside and say, no, that this is what God is saying to me.
God's always working on us, pull us out of the world's religion, its works, and really get us into walking with God. If you look back how Jesus, he commanded, follow me. And only one person really refused him was the rich man. The rich unruly said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And he said, keep all the commandments. He said, I've done that. See, he was posing. He was posing. Yes.
No, he probably thought he.
Yeah.
It's what's bad is when you believe your own press.
We all been there, haven't we?
Yes. Yes. But you got to come out of that. You got to take the walls down.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
take the
that
walls
paradigm.
down.
Yeah.
How does God get in if you filled up with something else, or you got your walls up? He won't open the door.
And who does Paul say in Ephesians that our battle's against? It's not against flesh and blood, right? Powers, rulers, authorities. It's something bigger and greater than us.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have to have a lot of help in that realm because we can't even see it.
But it all goes back to, again, what we're hoping the fruit of the entrenchment would be, that as you hear the opportunity for these things in your church, in your men's group, and all those kind of things, wow, reach out, right? Because there's nothing like somebody that loves you, that sees your pose, okay? That knows that you, Robbie, that sounds a whole like an agreement that you got right there that you're struggling with, that can say that lovingly to you in a way that you receive. And that comes, from some work. And that work means that you got to reach out to masculinejourney.org and, Sam at Masculine Journey, or Robbie at Masculine Journey, or Andy, Danny, whoever you choose. We would love to hear from you. Again, masculinejourney.org. The whole idea is we want to come have fun with you guys.
This is the Truth Network.